capable of? And it's something that we have to look at ourselves individually and reflect on. So what I want you to do is think of the righteous of the past. For example, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah, the leader of the Muslims, and what he said with regards to his goals. And of course, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he had goals. His objective was to spread Islam. The famous hadith, where there will come a time when Islam won't be something except that it will be in every single household, meaning everyone would have heard of the religion of Islam. So these are things which were visions and goals that the Prophet ﷺ had, which of course they are coming true, or they're more or less prophesied, and they have become established. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the leader of the Muslims, he once told his students, he said that when I was younger, every time I had a goal and an objective, I would accomplish it. He said that طاقت نفسي للعلم. When I was younger, I yearned to seek knowledge, and I sought knowledge. Then I had a yearning to marry the daughter of the leader of the Muslims, Fatima bint Abdul Malik. And I ended up marrying her. And he actually ended up marrying the daughter of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. Then he said, طاقت نفسي أن أكون واليا على المدينة. I had a yearning to be the governor of the city of Medina, to be in charge of Medina. And that happened. He was the governor of Medina. Then he said, طاقت نفسي أن أكون خليفة. I had a yearning to be the Khalifa of the Muslims. And I also accomplished this. And so those who were around him, they said, ماذا تشتاق يا عمر? What do you yearn for now? Now that you've accomplished all of this, what do you yearn for? He said, أشتاق إلى الجنة. He said, I yearn for Jannah. My goal is now Jannah. So the point being here, that he had these goals and he set his sights to accomplish something, and of course he accomplished it. So what I'd like you guys to do, think about this idea of goals and aspirations that you want to accomplish in the month of Ramadan. And they say that when a person writes his goals down, he's 42% more likely to accomplish them. Especially if you write them down on a piece of paper and you put them on the wall in your room. Because when you constantly see your goals, you're constantly reminded of them. Whereas if you just think of doing something in your mind, okay, this is my goal, or these are my goals, you're going to forget about them. So just, things will happen and you'll just become preoccupied. So I want to give you a couple of minutes. I want you to make a note of what your goals are for this month, for the month of Ramadan, which is coming. What goals do you want to accomplish? It could be to do with the Quran. It could be giving a certain amount of money to charity. It could be, feeding a certain number of people. It could be helping your local community, other Muslims, your neighbors. It could be, for example, keeping some ties of kinship. It could be reading a certain amount of Quran. It could be doing something with your family or your children. Okay, it could be many different things, volunteering, whatever the case may be. Reading a certain amount of raka'at, or praying, a certain number of salawat, nawafil salawat, for example, strengthening your sunan prayers, your fard prayers, possibly, many things. Okay, so think about what your goals are and what you want to accomplish. So I'll give you a couple of minutes, inshallah. Make a note. Okay, you can do it on your phone if you don't have any paper. Make a note, inshallah, of what those goals are that you wish to accomplish in the month of Ramadan. I'll give you a minute or so, and then we'll continue. Okay, so you might have some goals written down, and you may have different kinds of goals, maybe to do with Quran, maybe to do with your salah, maybe to do with with your family, for example, or how much charity you wish to give, or something else. You may have a number of different goals related to different things that you want to accomplish in the month of Ramadan. And like I said, it's important to understand that you have these goals that are high in terms of the aspirations that you have for the month of Ramadan, but also to be realistic and realize what your abilities are based on your own experience. And there's an example of Umar radiallahu an, when they tried to perform Umrah and the Quraysh stopped them. The Prophet ﷺ wanted to send Umar radiallahu an to negotiate with the Quraysh. And Umar radiallahu an, he said, "O Messenger of Allah, my animosity to the Quraysh is well known," meaning they don't really like me. I'm not their best friend. And he said, I'm afraid that they won't accept me and they may even kill me. And he said, I don't have anyone from my tribe to protect me, but if you want me to go, I will still go. Because if you're commanding me, I will still go. But I would recommend somebody else. I would recommend Uthman ibn Affan to go, because he has more nobility in their eyes than I do. Because Uthman ibn Affan was related to Abu Sufyan, who was the leader of the Quraysh. He was from the same tribe. He was his second cousin. And so he realized this would be better. What does this teach us? It teaches us that Umar radiallahu an understood his capabilities in this regard. He didn't just think to himself, okay, I'm going to do it because, I want to be the one in charge. I want to be the one to show everybody what I'm capable of. But he realized there were other people who were better for the role than he was. He realized that he had certain things that he wasn't able to accomplish. He knew his limits. So likewise, we also need to understand our limits. But at the same time, of course, we also have high aspirations. And like I said, this is something which you'll have to just reflect on yourself based on your own experiences. Also, as I mentioned, writing down your goals gives you a 42% more chance of accomplishing those goals, and that's based on statistics and research which has been done. Another thing which they say that you should do when it comes to your goals is to tell other people about your goals. Tell other people about your goals, not just anyone. Like, don't just go down the street and just tell somebody else about your goals. Close people who are close to you, telling them about your goals. Why should you tell close people about your goals? How does that help you? Very good, it's motivation. How does it motivate you? Okay, they'll hold you accountable for it. You'll say, for example, my aim is to read the whole Quran in the month of Ramadan. And a week into Ramadan, okay, they'll ask you, how much have you read? And you're like, I haven't read anything. And they're going to say, why? So you're accountable. You told them. So telling somebody else will motivate you to do your part, to accomplish your goals. So it's that added pressure, if you like. It's accountability, maybe encouragement. Of course, it has to be the right person, people who are close to you. And of course, you have to balance between telling those you trust and they're going to help you, and not having a sense of riyā and showing off. So you're doing it for the sake of Allah, you're sincere. You're telling those people who you trust will help you. You're not doing it because you want them to know, because you're doing good deeds, but it's to help you accomplish those goals. So you've listed your goals, you wrote down your goals. You may look at those goals that you want to accomplish in the month of Ramadan, and maybe some of them you're able to accomplish by yourself. You can just do them without having to rely on anybody else. But there may be others that you may have to ask for assistance from someone from. You may have to ask somebody for help for some of the goals you want to accomplish. And if that's the case, then you'll need to speak to them. It might be your spouse. I mean, if you want to, for example, read 2 khatams of Quran in Ramadan, and you want to spend 2 hours a day just in your room reading Quran, and you're married and you've got 3 or 4 children, and you just, Ramadan comes and you lock yourself in the room, and your wife doesn't even know what's going on, and you're there reading Quran for 2 hours, and the kids are screaming, and she's like, doesn't know what to do, and she's thinking, what's happening? It wouldn't really be the best Ramadan. It won't last very long. So it's good to tell others, those who will help you. So what I want you to do is look through the list and look at which goals you'll need other people's help with, and then list who it is that you need their help in order to accomplish that specific goal. So it might be your mother, it might be your father, it might be a certain friend, it might be a relative, it might be your brother, your sister, your close friend, whoever it is. Go through the list that you have. And you can add to this list as well, by the way, later on. Maybe you haven't written all the things down. Maybe you still need to think about what you want to accomplish in the month of Ramadan. You might add to this list later, but for whatever you have right now, make a list of people who you might need to ask for help, who they are, and which goal they will need to help you with. So next to the goal, write their name. And there's an example of this in the Quran where Prophet Musa alayhi salam was ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go to Fir'aun and to call him to the worship of Allah. And he made his famous dua, رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِّنْ أَهْلِي, and make for me a helper from my family. Harun Aqeel, Harun my brother. And so Allah made Harun alayhi salam a prophet to help Musa alayhi salam. So look at how Musa alayhi salam is being commanded by Allah, but he still understands and realizes he needs help. He can't do this by himself. And so he's asking Allah that he needs help, and he needs Harun to help him. So, we need to understand, especially as men, that if we need help with a certain task, there's nothing wrong with asking somebody for help. Because if Musa alayhi salam can ask somebody for help, then we definitely can ask others for help. Sometimes we think, no, I need to do it by myself. And we're there by ourselves trying to, build a shed or something in the garden, and there's nobody. We're thinking, no, I can do this by myself, and you're there like for 3 days trying to figure it out by yourself, because we're just too proud to ask others for help. So if a person needs to ask for help, then he should ask for help, inshallah. That will benefit him in the long run. There's nothing wrong with this. Musa alayhi salam himself would ask others for help. So you've probably made a list now of goals that you feel like you may need help with, and who is going to help you with them. So that's number 6, whether or not you need help. So just to recap, sincerity is number 1. Number 2, what are your strengths? Number 3, have high aspirations, but be realistic. Number 4, write your goals down. Write your goals down. Number 5, tell close ones about your goal or about your goals. Number 5, tell close ones about your goals. Number 6, do you need any help with your goals, or seek assistance for your goals if necessary? Number 7 is that you should treat Ramadan like a marathon, not like a sprint. Because a sprint, what happens? It's 100 meters. Once they do 100 meters, they've got run as fast as they could, and then they're exhausted by the end. In a marathon, do they run as fast? They don't run as fast. They don't run as fast because they know that it's a longer race. It's a longer journey. It's a longer track. And so they're not running as fast because they're trying to pace themselves. Because if they run just like a person runs in a 100-meter sprint, they're going to be exhausted after 100 meters. They've got another 300 meters or 500 or 1,000 meters left. And so it's not going to help them. They're going to be exhausted. It's going to be a complete waste. They're not going to accomplish anything. Ramadan is like that. Ramadan is 30 days. It's a whole month. And the goal is to increase in our ibadah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he would increase his ibadah in the month of Ramadan, and then he would tighten his belt, meaning he would try even harder in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Which means he was also, what would we say, pacing himself. He was also pacing himself, and in the last 10 he would make even more effort. He would try hard in the whole month, but in the last 10 he would make even more effort. Now really, we should have been preparing for the month of Ramadan 3 or 4 or 5 months before today. Prior to today, we should have been preparing 3 months, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, maybe 6 months ago. How? By reading more Quran, increasing in reading more Quran, by practicing our sunnah more often, or praying them more regularly, or our fard prayers, fasting regularly, at least once a week or twice a week, just to prepare the body. But regardless, now that the month of Ramadan is coming, we need to learn to pace ourselves. And it's hardest at the beginning. Like the first few days of Ramadan is very hard. or the first week, because everyone's excited, everyone wants to do lots of good deeds. And another dangerous thing that happens is you see somebody next to you doing certain good deeds, and you think to yourself, maybe I'm not doing enough. And that can be good, but at the same time, if that person had memorized Quran when he was 10 years old, and he's reading like 3 or 4 juz every single day, and you don't even know how to, you just about can learn, or you can just about read Quran, then there's no reason for you to try to compare yourself to him, because you're on a different level. So sometimes when you compare yourself to somebody else who's doing certain deeds, okay, it's going to end up disappointing because it's not fair. It's not a fair outlook. You can't compare yourself with another person because like we said before, everyone's different. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. So if you have certain goals in mind, you need to be disciplined and strict with what you want to accomplish. And don't get swayed here and there, because it might just end up being futile ultimately, or maybe you won't accomplish as much as you wanted to accomplish because you don't really have those goals set in stone. So treat it like a marathon. Be consistent. The most important thing with regards to acts of worship, especially in the month of Ramadan, is being consistent. For example, if you're planning on doing khatm of Quran, okay, then you need to be consistent. Because if you miss out 2 or 3 days, then you're going to have to do 2 or 3 juz in one day. That's going to be a lot harder. Whereas if you were consistent every single day, it would make it a lot easier. And if you're consistent in an act of worship, and you're consistent for like 2 or 3 weeks, for example, let's say you were reading half a page, memorizing half a page of Quran a day. Maybe that's one of our goals, to memorize a certain amount of Quran. Let's say you were memorizing 3 lines every single day, for example. After 1 month of accomplishing this, or let's say 2 weeks of doing this every single day, 14 days, what would end up happening? Naturally, you would end up doing more. Naturally. Why? Because you're so used to doing it on a daily basis, whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even a month, that three lines or 3 ayahs, for example, or 3 or 4 lines, it wouldn't be that hard anymore. Naturally, you'll end up doing more. And I know somebody, he used to memorize half a page every day, but he was consistent. Every day he would memorize half a page. Eventually, it became a page, because naturally, he just ended up doing more, because his brain, his body was used to it. Then he ended up doing 2 pages. And then he would do 2.5 pages. And 2.5 pages is 1/8 of a juz. So every 8 days, he was memorizing 1 juz. But it started with just half a page. But again, because he was consistent, that was the most important thing. So treat this like a marathon. Be consistent, but you don't have to do a huge amount. But you can build on it. And don't forget, the most important days are the last 10 days, or the last 10 nights. So you don't want to, overexert yourself where you end up not doing anything in the last 10 nights of the month of Ramadan. So one needs to also be careful of that. So treat it like a marathon, not like a sprint. Number 8, which goals are you prioritizing? Ask yourself, which goals are you prioritizing? So the goals you have now, I'd like you to number them from 1 to 10, or from 1 to however many you have. Which ones do you want to prioritize in the month of Ramadan? So put a number next to whichever one is the most important. Number 1 being the most important, and the last one being, I want to say, the least important. But number 1 should be the one that you feel like you can accomplish the most, or the best, or the easiest, or what you're going to be, what you want to focus on this Ramadan. So maybe you can quantify them, number them. Which ones you want to give more priority in the month of Ramadan? The ones you want to accomplish the most. So now that you have your goals and you've prioritized them and you know what you want to accomplish in the month of Ramadan, we need to break down those goals. So I'll give you an example. Let's say some of us want to do khatm of Quran in Ramadan. We want to read the whole Quran in the month of Ramadan. Now, for some, that might be easy. For some of us, it might not be easy. It might be a bit hard to accomplish with everything else that we're doing, work, etc., family. But what we need to do, whatever goal you have, you need to break it down so that it becomes easier. It might sound hard initially, But once you break a goal down, it becomes a lot easier to manage. You realize it's not actually that much. I'll give you an example. Khatam of Quran, 30 juz. That means, if you were to break it down every week, how much Quran are you reading in a week? How many juz in a week if you want to read the whole Quran in the month of Ramadan? 7, but a bit more than 7. Why a bit more than 7? Because Ramadan could be 29 days, isn't it? So you have to bear that into account. So for example, 7.5 juz, okay, every week. Now if you broke that down into days, that's just over 1 juz every single day. 1 juz in the Quran is about 20 pages. Yeah? 1 juz is about 20 pages. Now, if you broke that down, 20 pages, okay, there are certain things that you're doing in your days that you have to do, for example, salah. Now, if you were to pray Fajr, for example, but you took 5 minutes before Fajr and 5 minutes after Fajr to read Quran, and you did that for every single salah, you would easily be able to finish 1 juz every single day. Yeah, 20 pages. 1 page takes about what? A minute? 2 minutes? 2.5 minutes? Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes for 1 page. So how much would you have to read before and after every single salah? Around 4 pages. So 2 pages before Fajr, 2 pages after Fajr. Now, looking at it from that perspective, is that hard to do? That sounds quite easy. And you might even start thinking, actually, you know what, I can do two khatams in the month. This sounds quite possible. If you can do 2 pages before Fajr, 2 pages after, 2 before Dhuhr, 2 after, 2 before Asr, 2 after, 2 before Maghrib, 2 after, 2 before Isha, 2 after. And of course, we're going to be most likely in the Masjid for Tarawih. So maybe you can do even more. Before Isha, and then just after Isha, before Tarawih starts, for example, then after Tarawih. Do you understand? So the point is here that once you start breaking things down, it makes it a lot easier. You want to give £1,000, I don't know, in charity, £500, whatever the amount is, £100, £150. It might seem like a lot of money, but if you break it down on a daily basis, how much would that be? £5, £10? If you gave £5 every single day for 30 days, how much is that by the end of the month? £150. Yeah? So it's not that hard. Okay? Again, it depends. Some of us probably thinking, I don't even have enough money to, support my family. So everyone has different goals, different, circumstances, so they can look at whatever their goals are. So break down your goals. Don't just look at the end goal, what am I going to accomplish by the end of the month? Look at what you're going to do by the end of each week. What are you going to accomplish by the end of each day? What are you going to accomplish by Fajr, by Dhuhr, by Asr, by Maghrib, by Isha? Because it's going to be a lot easier to manage them. And you're fulfilling your goal on a smaller scale. And then inshallah, you're going to accomplish bigger goals in the long term. And that's what they say. They say, mountains are climbed by single steps. You take it step by step, and eventually you reach the top of the mountain. But you don't think of the top of the mountain. You don't just jump and get to the top. You take steps, and it takes time. But eventually you get to your goal. So break down your goals. Number 10, you also need to ask yourself, how much time would I need to get each goal done? How much time do I need? So we talked about the Quran, for example, 20 pages, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, 4, 5 minutes before Salah, after Salah. Yeah? Other acts of worship. Maybe you want to pray a specific number of salawat. Maybe you want to focus on our sunan prayers, rawati prayers. Maybe you want to visit some people, close family members, keep our ties of kinship. Whatever the case may be, think about how much time you'd need to set aside. I need half an hour in the day. I'm also working. So that half an hour, when can I slot in half an hour in my schedule in the day to get something done that I want to accomplish in the month of Ramadan? So how much time would I need to get each of my goals done? Number 11, look at your routine. we're working, we have responsibilities with our families. Maybe we're working 2 jobs. Maybe we have other, responsibilities, other duties to our parents or to family members or other people. So look at your daily routine, okay, and look at what's movable and what's immovable. Meaning, what can you shift around and what can't you shift around? For example, I teach in a school and I have lessons. I have to go in at a certain time and finish at a certain time. I can't just, say to the head teacher, I'm not going to come in today. It's Ramadan. I'm going to relax and, I decided I'm not going to come in today. I can't do that. But I do have lunch times. And so there's flexibility in what I can do in the lunch times or break times. Normally, what do we do outside of Ramadan? Break time, lunch time. We're eating. But alhamdulillah, we're not going to be eating now. So now you can spend that time doing something else. So what can you move around? Your job is something that's fixed. Maybe other things are fixed. But maybe there's things that we do that we have a routine of doing which we don't need to be doing. We can delay it. Or maybe we can get rid of it altogether for a few days, meaning the month of Ramadan. Okay? Certain things that we can move around. Why are we moving them around? To make space for accomplishing the goals we want to accomplish. Whether it's, going on our iPads, watching movies, or playing video games, or, watching the football, or whatever it is. Whatever we're planning on going out with our friends, those things we can move around. We don't have to do them. Things we can't move around, work, of course, salah. We can't move the salawat around. Those are fixed. So you work around those things that are fixed. And those things which are flexible, you can move them around for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then once you figure out what parts of your routine are flexible, number 12, list when in your day you can schedule that task. When can you do it now? So now we're being more specific. Now we're thinking about times. 10 o'clock, when I wake up at 7:30, lunchtime, 12:30, my lunch starts. I can spend 20 minutes, half an hour of my lunch. I'm not eating, so I can spend half an hour of my lunch reading my Quran or doing something else that I want to do. And of course, it is the month of the Quran. It's the month of Ramadan. So, we should have a goal of doing something related to the Quran, inshallah. After iftar, we're going to be at home. We have some free time, spend some time then to accomplish our goals. So list when in your day you're going to schedule that task. So those goals you have, maybe next to them, put a time. This is the time that I'm going to accomplish this goal. Again, we need to be realistic as well, because the aim and the intention is to accomplish these goals in the month of Ramadan. That's the aim. So we don't want to overexert ourselves. But of course, we need to have high aspirations at the same time. Number 13, set deadlines for yourself. So for example, doing Khatam of Quran. By the end of today, for example, I'm supposed to finish off reciting 1 juz. So before bed, I have 2 pages left or 4 pages left, for example. That needs to be done before I go to sleep. I need to read those before I go to sleep because tomorrow I'm going to do the 2nd juz. So I want to make sure I get it done. It's the daytime, for example. You need to read half of the 1st juz by 12 o'clock. You made a deadline for yourself. I've got till 12 o'clock to read 10 pages. And it's 7 o'clock in the morning. What does a deadline do? We have deadlines in school and in university and work. We don't like deadlines. But what do deadlines do? They force you to complete the task. And your boss says, this is your deadline. I need this in by this time. It forces you to be organized, forces you to get things done. It removes things which aren't important also. Isn't it? It makes you prioritize. Okay, I've got a deadline for this. This doesn't need a deadline. I don't have a deadline for this. This can be done later. As for this, it needs to be done by 12 o'clock. I need to read 12 pages. So now that you have a goal, once you get it done, there's a sense of accomplishment. I've done it now. And you'll actually realize you have more free time because you're organizing yourself in a much more effective way instead of just putting things off and procrastinating, which is to put things off and delay things that you're supposed to be doing. So setting deadlines is really good. Number 14, it's important to get rest. Don't think just because it's Ramadan, I can't get any rest. I shouldn't be resting. It's a problem if you say to yourself, I need rest, I need 12 hours sleep, and I can't be reading too much Quran. I'll read one page. That's good, but I need to rest. I don't want to overexert myself. Okay, that's obviously a problem because that's just being lazy. But at the same time, we don't want to be, living off 1 hour's sleep every single day, because come 3 or 4 days later, okay, into Ramadan, 3 or 4 days into Ramadan, we're going to be exhausted. And then we're going to end up crashing for like a week or something. And everyone knows about the dip in Ramadan. The middle 10 days, you get that dip, which, some say is like, it's sometimes inevitable, but you try to fight your way through it, and it helps you prepare for the last 10 days also. So, getting rest, try to get rest. Again, you know yourself. You know if you genuinely need the rest, or if it's not a genuine thing and you're just being lazy. So you know yourself when you need rest. You know yourself best. And lastly, number 15, they say aim for the moon. If you miss, you may hit a star. Aim for the moon. If you miss, you may hit a star. What does that mean? It means you aim high, and let's say your goal was to do khatam of Quran twice, 2 khatams by the end of Ramadan. Let's say you did 1.5. You aimed high, okay, you never accomplished your goal, but you did your best and you still read 1.5 khatam of Quran. You still did 1.5 khatam. Yeah? So that's still a big achievement. From your perspective, maybe you never did even 1 khatam in the past, in previous Ramadans. Yeah? So the point here is always aim high. Okay? Have high aspirations, aim high, and even if you don't accomplish them, you'll hit a star, meaning you'll land close by. Okay, you would still have accomplished a great deal in the month of Ramadan. So inshallah, I hope this will help us, to prepare for the month of Ramadan, having some kind of idea of what we want to do in the month of Ramadan. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're able to accomplish all of our goals in the month of Ramadan. If there's any questions, then I'll answer them inshallah before we finish. Yes, scholars differed about it, but inshallah, if you have a mushaf while you're reading, while you're praying, inshallah, it's fine. As long as it doesn't cause too much distraction, and it's just to read Quran. So a phone might be better, as long as it's on airplane mode. You don't want to be getting messages or anything while you're reading Quran, because it's easier to change pages and to put in your pocket once you finish, the standing portion of your salah. But inshallah, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, that's nur upon nur, isn't it? That's light upon light. To finish your Quran, to read your Quran in your salah, you're doing an act of ibadah in an act of ibadah. So no doubt, the Prophet ﷺ would read his Quran in salah. That's even better. I wouldn't advise the English, because if it's just English, that's a problem, because you wouldn't know what he's reading anyway. But if it's Arabic and English, then the problem with the English is it's not a translation; it's an interpretation of the meaning of the Arabic. So it kind of takes away from the sacredness or the haiba of the salah. You're supposed to be focusing on the words the Imam's reciting, the Arabic. So I would advise just following the Arabic, inshallah. And then in your own time, you can look at the translation, either before salah or after. Okay, jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.